Hello, everyone. I'm Reverend Richard Miner. I'm the Graduate Engagement Officer here at One Spirit Learning Alliance in New York City. And it is my great pleasure to be here today with Reverend Victoria Price. Victoria, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Victoria is a graduate of the class of 2016 here at One Spirit. Victoria, you've had a really interesting career. You've had careers as a designer, you're a public speaker, and you're also an author of several books, the most recent of which is an inspirational memoir titled The Way of Being Lost, A Road Trip to My Truest Self. It's really wonderful to have you here with us today because you have such an unusual and interesting ministry. I'd like to start by finding out a little bit about what was your time in seminary like, and how did it impact your life?
Well, I did the 3-year program. I started One Spirit in 2012, and I got to within 2 weeks of the intensive, and I had this epiphany. And so I called my dean, Bob Demetrician, and I said, I've done this all wrong. I've done it like school. I thought of it as learning, and that's not why I did this. I did this to engage with my heart and from my heart. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to take a year off, and I'm going to come back and do it again. And he was really sweet. He said, are you sure? You can just do are you behind on your work? You can just do the intensive and decide what you want to do. I said, no, this is what I want to do. And I think he absolutely thought I wasn't coming back. But I knew that I had really approached One Spirit like school. And that wasn't what I needed to do. And from the moment I re-entered, I felt like I found my heart tribe. Sorry, my chatty dog here. This is Allie. And so I felt like I found my heart tribe. And they were amazing. We had a very close-knit class, a wonderful class. And I really felt like I'd come back for the right reason. And so I did the 2 years, and it was, I think, as it is for everyone, both magical and beautiful and profoundly moving and completely an upheaval in my life. I ripped my life back down to the studs and did it again. And as a result, I feel like I learned some things I never would have learned otherwise. Not all of them were easy, not all of them were fun, but they were all necessary. And I think a big part of why I embarked on this very weird journey of the last 2 years of my life, I am intentionally homeless. I live on the road, is because I went to One Spirit.
That's really wonderful. That's an inspiring story. It's very unusual for people to do a full 3 years, but it sounds like it was really a good decision for you. Now you're doing some very wonderful and unusual things in your ministry right now, some sort of unconventional things. Could you tell us a little bit about your ministry and what drew you to it?
Sure. Well, I had no interest in being a minister or a reverend. I didn't grow up in any kind of denomination that had ministers or reverend. I had no idea of what that meant. And it wasn't really until the second year and Diane began talking about the idea of ministry as a verb more than as a title, minister as a verb more than a title. And some of my classmates talking about the idea of reverence as opposed to reverend being a term, that I began thinking about what the heck I wanted to do. And the moment I began thinking about it, I realized I was already doing it. I have an unusual background. My dad was an actor, but he had a 65-year career, very long career, but he is most famous for the last part of his career when he became the king of horror. My dad was Vincent Price, and for the last 30 years of his career, he made horror movies. He was the least scary person on the planet, the person who taught me the meaning of unconditional love, and yet he made his living scaring people to death. And in 2011, I was invited out on the road in honor of his 100th birthday. People all over the world were creating these events called the Vincentennial. And I had written his biography 10 years earlier. And I went out on the road, and I thought, I don't want to talk about how he lived his life, his movies, all of this, what he did. I wanted to talk about how he lived his life. And what I ended up doing was remembering how he moved through the world, the immense joy with which he moved through the world. And to do that, I sort of had to stand in his shoes and embody him to people who wish they'd been able to meet him. And in doing that, what happened was I remembered my own joy. And I connected with people with whom I had very little in common. I don't really like horror movies. I don't like being scared. But I connected with them from my heart. And I began going to horror conventions. I go to 4 or 5 horror conventions a year, if not more. I was named Monster Kid of the Year in 2016, which is a huge honor in the horror world, as the person who's done the most to support the horror legacy, all from somebody who literally I've never seen I've never seen a slasher film. I've never seen The Exorcist. I've never seen any horror films. I've seen a few of my dad's. And it's because I recognized in the horror community the idea of a heart tribe. And they prepared me for One Spirit and for the idea that I wanted my own heart tribe. And my own heart tribe was an interspiritual tribe. So I still go out on the road and I go to these horror conventions and we just connect through love. And so a big part of my ministry is talking to people with whom I have really nothing in common and finding the heart connections and what we have to teach each other. They have taught me so much about love, the horror community.
That's really amazing, and I think that really does go to the heart of what ministry really means, and really underscores the idea that ministry can look like many different things to many different people, and still be really important work, and still be really effective work. You've done some great projects that are coming to fruition right now. You've got a wonderful new book coming out. Can you tell us a little bit about your new book and the inspiration that brought it forth?
Sure. Well, one of my co-ministers is sitting right here in my lap. I am literally intentionally homeless. This is not my home. I'm staying at the home of a client who's become a dear friend. And I go out on the road, and one of my practices is I drive the back roads from gig to gig, whether I'm working on a design project, a public speaking event, or a horror convention. I try to get on the back roads, and a big part of my book tour is going to be going to independent bookstores all over the country on the back roads. And the reason I do that is an opportunity to people who might not like me, might be scared of who I am, and who I might feel are too different from me or might be scary. And of course, I have the advantage of this with me because she is the ultimate icebreaker. People don't even look at me. They don't look at this, 5'11" skinny woman with tattoos and short blonde hair and think, who is she? They just look at my fuzzball here and we have a conversation about dogs and love. But one of the things I do on the back roads is really break down the idea of duality. You cannot go through life outside of your comfort zone and keep an us and them perspective. I sometimes feel like I've lived the American dream in reverse. I've gone backwards. I grew up in a 9,000 square foot house as the daughter of a movie star in Holmby Hills, California, and going to incredible hotels and going all over the world. And my parents drove a Rolls Royce, and now I literally live on the road with my fluffy co-minister here, and meet all kinds of people and have profound conversations. And so the book is really about taking that ministry on the road. So in addition to doing a book tour, I'm going to be doing service outreach to different lost organizations. And I've identified 3, but really any of them that come up, LGBTQ youth, DACA dreamers, and the homeless. And so each place I go, I'm going to try and do outreach working with different communities, because I find that, again, if you are pushed out of your comfort zone, and that's the beauty of a ministry without a pulpit, you're always out of your comfort zone, then it's about connecting from the heart. And to me, that's all being a minister is. It's seeing through the illusion that we are separate from anyone and showing up in our hearts to one another.
That's amazing. And I'd also want to take this opportunity to mention that you have a really interesting blog that you do. It's www.dailypracticeofjoy.com. And you showcase not only your writing, but you also showcase your photography as well. So now we're coming near the end of our time now. Is there any final thoughts that you would like to leave us with?
You know, I work with a mentee now. I'm so excited. It was one of the things I wanted to do. And this year I was assigned a mentee. So it's fun. It's like getting to go through One Spirit again. And I had two incredible mentors during my 3 years at One Spirit. And I loved being, and then a good friend of mine went through One Spirit after me. So it's been fun to share that experience of sort of talking to people about what is the process of becoming an interspiritual interfaith minister. And I think the real thing, there's two things I learned. My mother was a very successful, very definite woman, and she fundamentally believed that there was one right way to do everything. And although in my head I knew that wasn't true, I wanted there to be, because I thought, if there's one right way, then maybe if I find it, I'll be safe. And one of the beautiful things I learned from One Spirit is you just have to learn to listen to your heart and listen to one another. And so I guess what I would share to anyone who is a One Spirit grad, a One Spirit student, or thinking of going to One Spirit or becoming an interspiritual minister is that the most important thing you can ever learn in life. I learned this very young through an unpleasant person who gave me one of the greatest gifts, is to learn how to listen to one another, and also to learn how to listen to ourselves from our hearts and not our heads. And I've been a head person my whole life, which is part of why I travel with someone nonverbal. My life partner is nonverbal. It really helps because I am way too verbal. So I would say the great journey of ministry and of life, and certainly of what I learned through the One Spirit curriculum, is learning how to listen from our hearts.
Oh, that's really, really beautiful. Victoria, thank you again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join me and to do this interview and to tell us about the amazing work and your wonderful experience at One Spirit. Again, your new book, The Way of Being Lost, A Road Trip to My Truest Self. It's going to be published, you said February 14th. And if you'd like...
I wanted to say I have a book signing in New York, book launch in New York for any One Spirit people. And it's on February 14th at Logos Bookstore. And then I have book signings all over the country. So I have a website that has all my little dates up on victoriaprice.com. And I would love to see One Spirit people on the road. It's, you know, living on the road sometimes is a little lonely. So seeing a familiar face and getting a hug or giving a hug would be awesome.
Now, if people want to reach out to you, would they go to victoriaprice.com?
Yeah, that would be
okay. Yeah. Terrific. Victoria, again, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you around One Spirit, and I will look forward to meeting you when you're in New York.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you. Bye-bye.